Welcome back for part 2. What is positive psychology anyway? I'm glad you listened well. We'll begin to really understand how positive psychology and neuro-linguistic practices help you become your most influential self. In part 1, we delved a bit deeper into some of the practical ways positive psychology affects all of us. As a reminder, here is the formal definition of positive psychology. Pay attention now as you hear and see it, so that in the future, when you are overcoming difficulties, that you are indeed managing your positive psychology. It is the scientific study of what makes life most worth living. It focuses on the strengths, the virtues that enable individuals and communities to thrive. Rather than concentrating solely on mental illness, it emphasizes positive aspects of life such as happiness, resilience, or fulfillment. When we talk about happiness, what does that mean? Positive psychology studies the factors that really contribute to how people have a fulfilling life. It looks at how people can increase well-being and their satisfaction, particularly through how they give gratitude, how they focus on gratitude, how they're optimistic, how they focus on being optimistic, and mindfulness, where they try to stay in the moment. The field of positive psychology explores how individuals bounce back from adversity, because all of us are going to deal with some level of adversity at some point in our life. And as people move through adversity with success, they leave a DNA trail. And that's what this field actually looks at. Positive psychology looks at people's strengths and virtues. And it recognizes that when people utilize their personal strengths, that it leads to greater life satisfaction. It also encourages people to identify and then leverage those unique talents and abilities for their own personal growth. So how do we get to NLP, or neuro-linguistic practices? Or I would call it the art of influence, and in a coaching or therapeutic setting, the rearrangement of good thinking for maximum awareness and benefit. Let's talk about the role of language in personal change. I think it's important to really understand that our thoughts are heavily influenced by language, period. So much so that some things only exist in language. I can have a personal conversation with you if you want to know more about that. When we say language, that is exactly what we mean. Sign language, verbal language, written language, etc. In turn, the use of language affects our emotions and our actions. So understanding the power of language is crucial for personal change and being influential. Positive psychology and NLP both utilize language to reshape thoughts and behaviors. Did you catch that? That's the connection. Positive psychology, which we've talked about already, and neuro-linguistic programming both utilize language to reshape the way that you think and the way that you behave. This helps individuals overcome challenges, and it also helps people achieve their goals. Remember that DNA strand? I tell you what, let's go right to the elephant in the room. I want to talk about hypnosis. I will make it so simple that there will never be any misunderstanding, and you yourself will be comfortable with hearing and knowing when you are in fact doing it. Here's my take. Hypnotic language patterns are all around us and used every day by anyone communicating with another person. Anytime, and I would say every time, we're in a communication with another person and they communicate something to us which we want to hear and we want to understand, we immediately go inside of our head or inside of our mind and interpret the information. We rate its importance, we give it value, and then we typically come up with a response. When this happens, you're in a light hypnotic trance, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing complicated, nothing difficult to understand. It's something we all experience. I'll share another more relevant example in just a moment. These language patterns, including hypnotic language patterns, they're just tools that can be used to communicate more effectively and to do it at a subconscious level or communicating with the subconscious mind. This isn't about control or coercion. Rather, it's about aligning conscious intentions, about being intentful with whatever your subconscious motivations are. The truth is, when you're doing certain things, particularly habits, you're doing it at a subconscious level. Like brushing your teeth. You don't think about brushing your teeth if you've been doing it for more than a year. You just simply do it. And while you're doing it, your mind wanders off. You're thinking about the next day or what you're going to do later or what you're getting ready to do when you go out. And you continue to brush your teeth, being aware of when you're done, because you have developed an unconscious habit by having done it so much that you don't need to pay attention to it. That is a form of trance. What it does when we are more intentful or purposeful with it, it creates awareness for us. Because if you're doing things and you're not aware why you're doing it, and you go, gosh, I want to change this habit, but you're not aware that you're even doing it until after you do it. So here's how hypnotic language patterns work. Number one, they create awareness. Hypnotic language patterns help us bring whatever is in our unconscious, whatever those beliefs are, it helps us to bring them into a conscious awareness. By understanding what a person's underlying beliefs are, you can work on changing them for the better. But if you don't understand the reason that you keep doing something over and over again, not even so much the reason, but the how you're doing it, how you're getting to that point, you're going to have a problem changing it. You'll be able to change it, but it's going to take you a long time. Hypnotic patterns also help us facilitate change because through specific language techniques, NLP helps us reframe negative thoughts into positive ones. And I'll just give you a very simple example. Every time you have an experience, there is value in it. There's something to be learned. And by changing your negative experiences into positive ones, you do that by actually extracting whatever the value that you could have gotten from it, whatever you might have learned, and this becomes what you hold on to. This becomes the representation of the bad image. So whenever the bad image comes up, there's something good, and you can begin associating it to a better feeling. The shift in your perspective is what empowers you to see challenges as opportunities for your growth instead of negativity. The other thing that hypnotic language patterns does is it does what I consider the most important thing that we can do, particularly if you're in leadership or aspire to be a leader, and that is building rapport. If you want to be a genuine person, then effective communication is the way to build trust and rapport, which I think is the most important facet in any communication, in any relationship. It gets to the basis of genuineness. And the reason why it's so important is because as you're building rapport, you're also building trust. And when you build trust, you enhance interpersonal relationships because by understanding language patterns, you foster understanding and clearly will develop empathy with the other individual. People feel valued. People feel understood when you create empathy. And just so that you can really allow yourself to relax and move past any anxiety about the word hypnosis or hypnotic language patterns or NLP, it's natural, I think, to feel uncertain about hypnosis, especially given the way it's portrayed in the media, popular culture. However, if you really look at the reality, it's far more empowering and beneficial than people actually demonstrate it to be. So I want to go into that, and I will save that for part 3. Please join me for part 3.